What's up, summoners? King Blair here. Today we're going to be talking about the current banner heroes, Kawerik and Vivian. If you guys saw the top 5 saddest stories, you guys know why they put these two people together. Very, very sad times. But alright, let's get into the introduction of the video. So if you like the video, make sure you like, subscribe, and join the Discord server. We are going to have another King's Cup tomorrow, and you can still sign up. Sign-ups are still up until tomorrow morning, and I'll talk about more in the stream that will happen after this. If you're watching the video now, make sure you click on the stream. But so make sure you join the Discord to see things for the tournament, as well as if you would like to support the channel financially, make sure and highly consider becoming a member. You can click the join button here on below the video, or you can go to my channel and click the join button there and support the channel financially. Right now I can't do funded tournaments, but with your support in the future I'll be able to do a lot more of that. Don't feel pressure to, just consider it. But alright, without further ado, let's actually start getting into the actual video, the reason why you clicked on this video. Kawerik and Vivian, should you pull for them? So I do want to preface by saying Season 3 has just come out, and there are some really cool looking units in Season 3 of Epic 7, right? So there's going to be a lot of really unique new units. I also predict that Alencia will be getting a rerun soon, so just take that with a grain of salt before you pull for these heroes. Between the two, I would actually recommend you pull for Vivian if you're going to pull. She has a lot more uses, and I actually do use my Vivian quite I do use my Vivian, and she does have some PvP usages as well. She actually is a really strong unit. Kawerik, on the other hand, is a lot more niche. And unless you really like his design and his playstyle and his kit and have something you think could work for him, I wouldn't pull for him. He most likely will sit in your storage just like mine, just because he's that hard to build, and you have to have a very specific team around him, and it's just very hard to build him. But let's actually talk about it, right? So before we start, they both do have their exclusive equipments, so I do want to touch on those so you guys know that they have some extra added buffs to them that you don't see in their actual kits. So they do have exclusive equipments, which again, anytime you have an exclusive equipment, it's pretty nice. So they are both mages. So Kawerik's gives him crit rate, which is very good. It does lower the gear requirement on him just a little bit. The first one is on his S2 that we'll see later. Can give him increased attack, which will make him a standalone unit. And the other two, the second one is more if you're trying to do some weird control comp with Kawerik, which I just wouldn't recommend, and I'll talk about that later. And then the third one, increasing that S3 damage. So that's the S3 you see there, that's the S2, just so you guys know. So increase attack, increase damage. Those are probably the ones you're going to be picking. For Vivian's are actually a lot more. The health, you might not think it's important, but it actually plays a really big role, and it has made her a lot better. The other thing that's made her a lot better is actually going to be the second one. The second one is amazing for PvP and PvE. It's probably the one that almost everyone has on her. The third one allows her to be more of a support. The first one is kind of like a niche thing where I just don't think you should use it. But these two definitely have a lot of potential, particularly the second one, and we'll talk about why this one is so strong. And we'll also have to talk about the artifact for Vivian. But let's start with Kawerik, because he's the one that I kind of want to go over a little bit faster, because there's more to talk about Vivian in particular, because she's actually going to be one that's more meta, so to speak. So for Kawerik, he looks sick. I'm gonna be honest with y'all, he looks sick. So they're both going to be mages. Kawerik is a 5-star mage, and typically mages have a lot of AoE, but Kawerik is one of the few assassin mages. So his job is to do high amounts of damage while also disturbing the opponent, and his stats do show that. He has amazing attack, amazing speed, and really good crit rate starting, because if you give him the exclusive equipment, that's 35% starting crit rate. Very powerful starting crit rate. The speed is super strong. It's faster than the majority of combat readiness boosters. It's faster than like a majority of units. It's a little bit slower than the assassins, but still really high up there. Can definitely make someone's day really sad. And then of course the attack, as we mentioned, very high. But the health, note how low this health is. He is a glass cannon by all extents of the word. So let's actually start looking at his... Oh, he also does a weakness attack, so you can get more attack there too. But let's actually take a look at his skills and see what he can offer. So the S1, actually a pretty solid skill. Silence is a really annoying debuff to deal with. It has a 75% chance to land the silence, which is it's good. It's not bad. But you're gonna start seeing some of the problems with Kawerik, because we mentioned he's an assassin, but he also needs effectiveness. So it's kind of like this disconnect where usually for an assassin you already have to give them high speed, high attack, but with Kawerik you also have to give him high effectiveness. That's tough. You know, that's actually really hard to do. because that's a lot to ask of the unit, and it's just gonna make him that much more of a glass cannon. But let's actually look at the skill 2. I'll talk about it. So I'll talk about the rest of his skills, and then I'll actually talk about where he's good and how to use him. Skill 2, main reason he's used. This skill is damage first, strip second. So it strips the enemy of 1 buff, which hurts him because it makes him so you can't just make him a support mage. Because if there's an FCC, you don't break through the barrier and you don't strip an immunity, it's GG for you. And it's only 1 buff, which also does kind of stink. But it does reduce cooldown twice. That means 2 turns if the skill does hit. You can soul burn it to ignore effect resistance. So that part is pretty nice. This one is kind of nice because it makes it so you can lower the... If you're using him just for this S2, it makes it so you don't actually have to give him as much effectiveness. Since he is a mage, you can actually give him Tome to be able to soul burn this yourself. This does also give him increased speed, making use of his high speed, and if you give him the exclusive equipment, it also does increase attack. So this is the main skill you're going to be using for. This is a really good disruptor. It's a really good opening skill, probably one of the best opening skills in the game, because this can be used a lot against a lot of heroes. As we mentioned, let's say you decide to pick Kawerik with Tome. This allows you to open the fight with a Soulburn S2 that you can reset a Royal Light, you can reset a Falconeer Clury, you can reset a lot of different units. Of course, you can't actually do this on like a Deanne because Deanne's water, which kind of does stink. But again, you can do this on Royal Light and lock out Royal from using her revive for 2 turns, which can hurt the opponent quite a bit. And it's all self-contained if you give him Tome. So very powerful skill 2. Skill 3 is his damage skill, penetrates defense by 30%. When he has increased speed buff, as we saw here, he does get increased speed buff. The ratios on this skill are a little bit on the lower side, and I do have to tell you guys that because he doesn't do crazy damage. Don't think like Kisei damage, it's actually lower than Kisei's damage when she penetrates. Of course, he does 30%, which is strong right now in the current meta, and the damage is based on his speed, but he's not going to be like one-shotting tanks with this. You know, like it's strong, especially if you have increased speed and if you have the increased attack, but it's not going to be doing like 20-25k to where you can make some weird cleave team with him, right? So just know that. That the ratios are not crazy. You can't give him the exclusive equipment if you are trying to cleave with him, which is something you can do. You can also give him the one that increases this by 30% from his exclusive equipment, making it so he can actually become a cleaver. Like let's say you pair him with Singelica, and instead of using him as an opener, you pair him up with Singelica as like a pseudo cleaver. So that can work. That one can actually work. So let's actually see it. I love the ultimate when he just goes like mana discharge. It's really cool. He's one of my favorite characters look wise, and I do have him. I just don't have him built because I just don't have the gear for him. So let's talk about him. What are some of his weaknesses? So strengths and weaknesses. Strengths. Very good opening skill 2. Very good base speed to actually utilize this S2. This S2 is what he's known for. And if you're trying to play him, it's probably going to be because of this S2. He also does have a lot, like a high skill ceiling, and can work on control comps. Because he actually does have a silence, he does do damage, and he does do cooldown reset, so he can be part of a control comp, which is something that a lot of people haven't explored yet, but I think he'd be really good as a damage dealer in the control comp, since control typically does suffer from very little damage. He can actually provide the damage that the control comp is seeking. As far as the weaknesses, he is a glass cannon by the definition of the word. If you don't have him in a control comp, or a very tanky team comp, he is going to just do this S2 and then just die the next turn. And that is his biggest problem right now. Most of the time, most fights, if you don't have a team built around Kawerik, you will never see this S3. You will never get the most out of his kit because he's just so freaking squishy. An Arbiter Voter S3 will kill him. Charon S3 will kill him. Rylet will definitely kill him. So that hurts too. The other thing is right now, Basar is actually not seeing as much play. So this isn't as strong against Basar because Basar is just not around as much. The other thing is that with Rylet around, Rylet is a very hard counter to Kawerik because Kawerik does the strip after the damage. If he did strip before damage, he actually could potentially strip a Rylet, but he also only does 1. So if the Rylet is paired with an FCC, even if it did it before, it's still too weak. So in the current meta, his skit is not as strong. Right now, if you want to use him for PvP, he's really good against Falconeer Clury, really good against... Falconeer Clury is the big one, and really good against Relic Light, because you're able to reset the Relic Light early on in the fight. As far as PvE, he does have one PvE usage, and that is going to be A13. He's actually a really solid A13 unit. Why? This skill resets the boss's cooldown, making it so that the A13 boss won't be able to spawn eggs. It also strips, so you're able to strip with him. So that's really nice, and because he has such a high base speed with this skill and he's able to cycle so often, you're going to be able to get the strip and this increased skill cooldown very often in your fight against the A13. And the few times that the A13 does actually get to put the eggs up, you'll be able to just kill them with this skill. So very solid for A13 there. So good for A13, decent for PvP. So should you pull for him? There are a lot of units coming out. I at least suggest you wait till next week to see what units are going to be coming out. If you love It's a Sign and you are like a hard control player and you want to do the experimentation with him and you can afford the bookmarks because there are going to be some great units coming out, then I would pull for him there. Or if you really like the way he looks. But yeah, that's Kawerik. Now as far as Vivian actually is a lot stronger, and between the two, I would recommend you pull for Vivian because she has a lot more access to. Kawerik is also a very late game unit. You won't be able to use it for early game. But late game, early game, Vivian is a very extremely solid unit. I actually think she's slowly becoming stronger and stronger as people start to play around more and as control gets more and more popular. So as far as her stats, her base speed, her base HP, again, pretty abysmal. But we did see it with exclusive equipment. She does get that extra 12%, making it almost 5k HP, which is not bad. The attack, again, not bad. The speed, pretty solid too. Really solid base speed, really solid defense, and then really high starting crit rate. This is really high starting crit rate. It's pretty unique to actually see it actually start that high. But what actually she do with it? She also does awaken into attack here, and can even get more crit rate if you do pull multiple copies of her, making it so it's easier to build her with high crit rate. So what can she do? She actually does fill two roles. She fills the role of a buffer / support and a damage dealer. And we'll talk about Dinga's Orb in a second because that just opens up so much more for Vivian. And we'll also talk about the exclusive equipment we saw there, why that's so good for the S3. So skill 1, nothing crazy, right? It's just attacks, increases her combat readiness. Nothing crazy at all. It's nice because she is fast, and being able to do this, it's like 15%. So it's 15%. That makes it so she can cycle pretty good because she's fast, so she can cycle pretty often. But again, she's pretty low base HP. The S2 is actually the one that she's actually known for. This skill is pretty scary. Very powerful skill too for two contents, PvE and PvP. We'll talk about that at the end. But basically, attacks the enemy, and if you kill, activates the attack again. So if you kill an enemy with this skill, you will do this skill again and again and again. It's also pretty good damage. The ratios are actually not bad at all. It does pretty good damage, and it can also be really, and it's an AoE attack that if you happen to get the kill, you can even abuse it a little bit longer and try to get even more kills. So powerful. Really good skill 2 for Vivian there. A lot of potential in this skill too. And we'll talk about why this skill is so good in a second. Then the skill 3. This just puts a whole kit together and actually makes her one of a really freaking amazing support damage dealer. So the skill 3 by itself gives her greater attack, gives a team attack, and immunity for 3 turns. She's one of the few units that actually gives attack buff for 3 turns, which is very powerful. She also gives greater attack on herself, making this skill hit like a freaking truck. Because if she gives greater attack to herself, she's going to be doing a lot more damage. And then the immunity makes it so it's hard to lock her down. So that does open up 2 builds for Vivian. It opens up the support Vivian and the damage Vivian build. So support Vivian build would be just capitalizing on the speed that Vivian has as an opener to be able to open with this S3, and if they have a dizzy, you just ruin their day. You do this S3, you get your greater attack buff, you give your team attack buff. That's so strong, even for a cleave team. That's so powerful. And immunity, it will kill control teams unless they have a Broman, because it's 2 buffs that they have to deal with and an immunity. So, and she's fast, as we mentioned. 115 is nothing to laugh at. And with Bazaar not being as prevalent anymore, very good offensive opener. One of the few that actually gives attack buff and immunity. I think she's the only one that actually gives attack buff and immunity. You can also give her the the exclusive equipment that will actually give her the that dispels a debuff, so now she can also help the team by dispelling debuffs. So very, very powerful skill there. It is on a 5-tier cooldown, so it's a little bit long. The build that is the most popular though, that you should be using and that everyone uses and that it's so freaking amazing if you can actually pull it off, is the Cleave Vivian build. Cleave Vivian build, what you do is you build her fast with high damage. You open up with this skill, locking your opponent out of being able to debuff, and then you give her the exclusive equipment that gives her 50% combat readiness. That will push her up to go like over here. 50% combat readiness. It'll push her up to go over here, which is amazing. And then because it's 50% and she's fast, if you follow up with like a Sangelica or a Sedum or someone that can give combat readiness, you're actually able to have your attack buffer. Let's say you pair her up with like Athletica, right? So let's say you somehow are able to open with Vivian, you have the Angelica go ahead, you have the Sedum go, you're actually able to cycle the Vivian again and be able to do this S2 before the opponent takes a turn. This is also extreme. It's so powerful. It's so good for Banshee as well, which is another place that she's actually really, really good at. Why? It makes Banshee one-shots, if you have Baiken, really, really easy because it lowers your requirements and can actually give you better Banshees. This skill, because it's on such a low turn cooldown, it's only a 2-turn cooldown. Like, you have to realize this is only 2 turns. And if it kills, it reduces the cooldown. So if it kills, it can keep using it. This skill is amazing for Asimekon 13. So she's good for A13, she's good for Banshee B13, and she's also a really strong PvP unit. So she definitely takes the cake. Of course, the artifact that you do have to pair her up with that kind of does take her to the next level is actually going to be her own artifact, which is in her banner, so if you pull for her, you might get it. Dingus Orb. Dingus Orb is very, very powerful on her because it also gives her a barrier. And as we mentioned with Kawerik, Kawerik is a glass cannon that doesn't get to utilize his kit because he has no way to actually get a defense, some defensive capabilities. But Vivian, with this, it lets her have a thick barrier that your opponent will not be able to get past, allowing you to get a guaranteed S3 into S2. Very, very powerful. Probably the best artifact on Vivian. But yeah, I don't want to make this video go over 20 minutes. If you want to see the Banshee B13 team, just look up a video. But that is all I have for you guys today. So to summarize everything you guys just heard into a very short thing, Kawerik, very niche, can work for you, but I would not recommend. Vivian, very, very powerful. Very good for cleave teams. Very, very good against control teams. So if you're struggling with control, very, very strong there. A lot of versatility and very, very good PvE-wise. So definitely a good pickup. If you're going to pull, I would recommend pulling for Vivian. Again, always wait till next week to see what they got. But yeah, that is all I got for you guys today, and I will see y'all next time. Peace.